this month, ProPublica shared leaked tax information on several of the world's richest people, like Jeff Bezos and Warren Buffett. And these documents showed the richest of the rich in this country have legally avoided paying almost any income tax. Joining me now is documentary filmmaker Abigail Disney. She is the granddaughter of Roy O. Disney and the grandniece of Walt Disney, who together founded the Walt Disney Company. Abigail, thank you so much for being with us this morning. You wrote this op-ed in the Atlantic titled, "I was taught from a young age to protect my dynastic wealth." First off here, you came to this decision to pull the curtain back on what I think so many Americans are curious about. Why did you decide to do that?
Well, because this is a long, many generations ethos that I think really needs to be questioned, and it's hard when you're raised in a family and you're taught something from very young to ask questions about those things. But looking around the way our society is currently structured, it really is time for wealthy people to ask themselves some hard questions.
So let's just talk about kind of the brass tacks of this. You say that you came into a significant amount of money at the tender age of 21, as you put it, and you became an asset manager before a lot of people get their first apartment. What were you taught, by whom were you taught to do?
It kind of starts with your parents, and they don't...
Kind of starts with your parents.
You know how families teach things. They don't just sit you down and tell you things. They show you what they value, and it's in the air. And one of the assumptions was that you would work very hard in your lifetime to take what you inherited and turn it into more so that your children would have more than you had. That was an assumption, a baseline assumption that was just written into everything from the beginning.
So you say, you talk about the methods and practices here, and the words on their own might make someone's eyes glaze over, but they're very important. So I want folks to stay with us on this. You say offsetting.
This is very important.
Income with losses in unrelated businesses, structuring assets to grow rather than generate income, borrowing against those growing assets for cash needs, deducting interest payments and state taxes from taxable income. You say that these methods and practices are so downright mundane and commonly applied that most rich people don't see them as unethical, but you see them as unethical.
We're going to listen to that one more time.
But they're very important. So I want folks to stay with us on this. You say offsetting income with losses in unrelated businesses, structuring assets to grow rather than generate income, borrowing against those growing assets for cash needs, deducting interest payments and state taxes from taxable income. You say that these methods and practices are so downright mundane and commonly applied that most rich people don't.
Mundane and commonly applied.
See them as unethical, but you see them as unethical.
Well, I do. I mean, those are varying levels of unethical. But for instance, take borrowing against your assets for cash needs. That is a way of relying on the growth in the value of your assets to create material things in your life without actually paying taxes on the growth in those assets. So you're benefiting by the growth without ever paying a capital gains tax. This is all possible because we don't tax growth, we tax work. And the fact is that people are sitting on their rear ends on their couches earning and not paying taxes on money while people are going out every day to a job and working their butts off just to make ends meet. And that just seems like an upside down structure.
You compare the dynamics of wealth to that of addiction. Tell us about that.
Well, I do think that an addict has the same pattern every time, no matter what the drug is. It's that, you take a drink, it feels good that first drink, you take a second drink, and the next night you come back to 2 drinks, and that gets you the feeling that you were looking for. And then before you know it, 3 drinks, 4 drinks, 5 drinks in, you've got to go further to get to the feeling that you're trying to have. And so when you have things, you have to have more things. And anything that you have turns into what is normal. And so there are people flying private aircraft right now who would rather be shot than get on a first class seat on a normal airline, because it would mean they'd have to walk through an air terminal. And that is terribly dangerous to democracy, to society, because there are people, large swaths of people, who are separating themselves so categorically from everything everyone else experiences, that then when they turn around and they use your money and translate it into political power, they don't have any idea what kind of lives regular people live.
And it's a very
Translating money into political power, thus impacting the entire way the country and the world works.
good point. And look, I feel like we were just scratching the surface of your op-ed here, but it is a fascinating read, Abigail. Thank you so much for doing it and for talking to us about it, Abigail Disney. And just ahead, the showdown over voting rights.